A tide of economic and social change swept across the nation of America in the 1920s. Due to the profound change that occurred in this time period, this decade is commonly known as the Roaring Twenties. After the war, Americans were eager to return to normality, resulting in drastic societal change. As the economy boomed, wages rose for most Americans and prices fell. This resulted in a higher standard of living and a drastic increase in human consumption. Not only did this nation of America undergo change in living conditions and wages, but the lives of women in America were forever changed. In 1920, Congress passed the 19th Amendment, granting women the right to vote. This amendment changed the lives of women in America forever. Women were no longer denied basic rights after years of perseverance and pursuit. This led to a radical change in the lives of women, changing the way they dressed, thought, and acted. In addition to changing the lives of women, cars, radios, electricity, and telephones were incorporated for the first time ever. Cars allowed both women and men to become independent. In addition, automobiles allowed workers to live miles away from their jobs, resulting in urban sprawls as cities spread in all directions. Additionally, radios brought the world closer to home, while telephones connected loved ones together. Finally, the electrical industry changed this nation forever. Electricity took this nation by storm and was implemented in most American households. This resulted in a spring of electrical appliances such as refrigerators and lamps, which would eventually change this nation forever.
In the 1920s, society was mainly revolved around religion. People who were hooked on traditional ideals were fundamentalists. What brought societal change to progress were these modernists that challenged fundamentalists with their ideals of suggesting how religion should not impose so greatly on society. Modernists spread what they considered fun and progress through scientific discoveries through media. People found it intriguing, which made them go full modernist, defying all their old traditions, while the majorities of other in the urban states wanted modern ideas but also wanted to sustain religious morals. Then the fundamentalists gazed it with hatred in a revolting manner. With the birth of modernism, the fundamentalists created a group called the Ku Klux Klan in response to the modernist ideas towards religion in society. On one side, we had fundamentalists that lashed out against science and encouraged prohibition while accusing modernists of having no morals. And on the other hand, we have modernists with new technological ideas that encouraged progress in science, such as their theory on evolution, which defined their religious beliefs. The Scotch trial was the first legal battle between modernists and fundamentalists, where John Scott was accused of teaching the theory of evolution. On the fundamentalist side, they argued that the next generation should know that humans were created by God, while modernists stated that they should know that they came from generations of organisms. Overall, society began as one under religious rule. Then the Roaring Twenties brought about modernization, where the fundamentalists feared that their traditional ways might be lost, creating tension between fundamentalists and modernists, as well as the argument of keeping traditions and progressing with society. This ended up splitting the society into two that repel each other's ideals of where society should lead to.
Once a woman would have to be well covered with well-maintained and styled hair, whose body was all kept tightly curved with a corset. Then when World War I hit, housewives had to support the household and the economy. Realizing they can do the same work as men in factories, the middle and lower class working women wanted to do more and have more, be able to be given the same opportunities as any other man had. After the war ended, the 1920s was full with women that strived for progress in their society. For example, the 19th Amendment, and the fashionable statement of flappers and the urban party scene, whose name was given for their flappy-like legs and their flashy dance moves. One flapper fashion trend was the higher hemlines, functioning for more mobility and making it easier to drive automobiles. Another were their less figured-shaped dresses, which had many statements, but one that connected with the progress in society uniting was the fact that such a dress can be seen as used in all class and age groups, making it possible for women, despite their age and class, to join together in a fashionable way. In fact, being fashionable was no longer isolated to women of higher class society. Since it was easier to tailor and mass produce these dresses, prices were reasonable, and the dresses were more available, shipped both to small and large towns. The patterns were even so simple that women could tailor their own dresses at home. Hair trends also divide old fashion. Women would bob cut their hair, a new endogenous look, only retained by headbands or hats that were festively decorated with beads and feathers, kept to keep their hair out of their eyes when dancing. Flappers' presence in the vivid nightclubs was also the product of modern-day inventions of home appliances, making life easier for housewives, giving them time and energy to not only party, but to strive for equality and progress in their society. Fashion trends in the 1920s was just a statement made by these empowered women, who defied societal norms, wanting to go out and drive themselves around, party like any other single man could. Societal change being made back then by these women was the progress that led closer to equality among genders, getting better towards today. Progress was also strived for in societal matters concerning an individual's responsibility with alcohol, leading to the societal discrepancy of prohibition and a battle of urban versus rural ideals of life. In the rural areas whose majority inhabitants are native-born and Protestant, had a stand in society with having traditionalist and fundamentalist ideas, strived for prohibition as what they deemed a way of reducing corruption and misfortune in the American society. While those in the urban setting, modernists, including flappers, jazz lovers, and fresh-off-the-boat immigrants, were against it, wanting to proceed in social interaction with the presence of alcohol. For as long as alcohol has been proven guilty of causing one to act out of their character, reformers in this case, the real religious people, believe that the prime cause of all corruption in their society is the presence of alcohol. That it's a sin, responsible for crime, child and wife abuse, accidents in jobs, and other serious social problems. With women leagues and unions more active and paid attention to during the time, church affiliation of the Anti-Saloon League and Women Christian Temperance ultimately were the ones to strive the furthest for the 18th Amendment to be passed, prohibition, the illegal use, manufacturing, sale, and transportation of alcohol. Once the first saloon officially closed, an uproar in the urban areas was caused. Because of the whirlwind recently ending and the horrors they just lived through, people wanted an escape through the vibrant and bright parties, heavily under the influence of their host, alcohol. The immigrants that entered the social scene in the urban cities also didn't see prohibition as worth obeying. They say this party scene is not as an act of sin, but just a form of socializing, a way of getting to know each other and growing personal and professional connections. Because of the expected outbursts of urban areas, and the Volstead Act of 1919 was passed, establishing a Prohibition Bureau that was poorly funded by the Treasury Department. Patrollers would have to walk approximately 18,000 miles to cover all of the urban areas. They would have to monitor coastlines and inland, tracking illegal distilling of alcohol. Would have to monitor truckloads of alcohol that were still permitted to transport, and oversee industries those trucks would deliver to, such as medical offices that needed the use of alcohol. For 15,000 poorly paid officers, it was an impossible job, and the defiance of prohibition was continued in secret. Because of the poor reinforcement and social norm of defying prohibition, secret underground saloons and nightclubs were very popular. Originally named as such for the speaking quickly to get in and the use of club cards as a pass. Inside there were counter social scene of middle-class men and women, drinking to their heart's desire and partying like there's no tomorrow. Since alcohol was no longer mass-produced and the demand was still rising, organized crime gangs grew in power, wealth, and influence. They were called bootleggers, originally named after the practice of bootlegging, where smugglers bring alcohol from Canada, Cuba, or the West Indies, hiding the bottles in their boots, to later be sold and made into a fortune. This practice also became a social norm where people progressed into defying government law, creating a new age of rebellion, as well as a new outlet for big business and organized crime. The famed Al Capone was a clear example of how these gangsters in the business would massacre even up to 7 members of a competitor gang in order to maintain their fortune. With the large defiance of law enforcement, rise in organized crime, and motive murders, prohibition had not served its purpose, with a large percentage that was for prohibition by the mid-1920s had dropped to 19%. People having long since rallied the streets strive for progress in strengthening the crumbling insecurity that was caused by prohibition. They strive for the abolishment of the 18th Amendment. The urban cities and those that were always against prohibition were finally heard, and the 18th Amendment was now overruled in 1933 by the 21st Amendment, ending the era of prohibition.